Well, welcome back to Cottage Farmstead. I'm Rebecca. Last week I was showing you around my garden as we're getting ready to transition into our fall garden. But before we do that, there's one last thing that I need to work on in our garden, and that is to save seeds. And as you can see behind me here, stuff is starting to die off, but it also makes it a perfect time to start saving a lot of seeds to save on my seed bill next year. So while this video is not meant to be an exhaustive list of all the steps that you need to save all of the seeds of your garden, I wanted to give you a general overview and get you inspired to start looking into how many seeds that you can save from your own garden before you pull it out for the fall. And I'll link below to a few links to our blog where I wrote the step-by-step how to save tomato seeds, cucumber seeds, drying bean seeds, even loofah seeds. So I'll link to those blog posts down below so that you can have some tutorials on a few of the crops step-by-step. So one of the fantastic things that makes seed saving so easy to do is that a lot of the vegetables like peppers, tomatoes, melons, we eat when they are perfectly ripe, which means the seeds inside are perfectly viable. So when I slice this bell pepper open for dinner tonight, I can just save the seeds that are inside, let them dry a little bit, and then I have my seeds for my garden next year. I see you, yeah. That's my goose. Yeah. So below me here is where our cucumber patch was, and as you can see with the 2 weeks of some pretty heavy rain, they finished wilting and dying on me. For saving cucumber seeds, we actually have to wait until the cucumbers are overripe and look, to be honest, pretty gross. So right here, I have one that's probably a little bit past the prime that I'd pick it, but it gives me an idea that you need to wait until it has turned yellow and it's gotten squishy. And really, you could save the seeds from inside this. It's just a little bit more squishy than I enjoy handling. So I'm probably gonna feed this one to the chickens right over the fence here. But I will take you inside and show you how to save the cucumber seeds once we finish walking around the garden. So similar to cucumbers, we eat cucumbers when they're considered green. They're not fully ripe yet. Same thing with green beans. So when they're on the vine, they're green and they're not fully ripe. They start getting their beans inside, and that's when you start seeing the bumps. But to save them for seed, you have to wait and let them start drying on the vine, kind of like this one right here. You can see this is getting kind of leathery feeling. It's not quite crunchy yet, but we're almost to the point where we can harvest it for seed. So another group of vegetables that you can save seeds from in your garden are things like your leafy greens and your root crops. So things like your lettuce and your kale and your radishes and your turnips. They all have to bolt before you can collect their seed, since we're eating the leaves or the roots of the plant, not the actual fruit. So as you can see with this lettuce plant here, this one has gone to flower and it's starting to set some seed. And the one next to it here actually has some seed already set on it. And so with like lettuce, it looks a little bit like dandelions. So when you pull them out, let me see if I can get one here. So I pulled off those fuzzies that you saw on the plant there, and attached to them, similar to dandelions, are the seeds. So you can see the seeds there in my hand, and that's what I would be putting into my seed saving container as I can plant those and have more lettuce next year. So things in the brassica family are gonna bolt and they put up flowers depending on what variety. Like this is a radish here that has some pink flowers. Some of them have purple flowers. Most of your leafy brassicas are gonna have yellow flowers on them. And after they flower, they're gonna set pods. So these pods, you're just gonna simply leave them on the plant until they're dry and crispy. These up here are almost dry. They're still a little squishy, so I can't open them just yet for seed. But this is what you are looking for when they are crisp. You'll be popping those open and your radish seeds will be inside and they'll be perfectly good for your garden. So one really important thing to note when you are saving seed from your garden is to keep in mind that you need to be saving seed from open pollinated or heirloom seeds. If you are growing hybrid seeds, you can technically save the seeds from them, but what will happen is when you plant those seeds, you may or may not get what you grew the year before. With hybrids, they are crossing two different parent plants, so maybe two different types of squash. And so you may have a squash that might be yellow one year, and then you plant the hybrid seeds and maybe one of the parents is green. And so you may end up with like a totally different squash plant. It'll still be edible, but it may not be what you were expecting. So with open pollinated and heirloom seeds, they have been bred non-hybridized. So they have become what they call stable. And so when you plant that seed and you harvest the seed from those, they're going to be true to seed, which means it's going to be the same seed that you save from the parent plant is going to be the same with the plant that you get next year, and so on through the generations. So all these seed saving principles can also apply to your flowers. So with flowers, you need to let them obviously get past their prime. They need to let them go to seed. So like the sunflower right here, once you get some of the chaff off the top, you can see that it's loaded with seeds, so I can save those and plant them in my garden next year. Zinnias are the same, so you can see I have some pretty ones still over there, and I've let these go to seed. They are still a little bit green, so I can't pop them off just yet. But when they are dry, you'll find that if you pull right here, the seeds will start popping out. Do I have a dry one in the back? Not quite. But very soon I'll be able to get the seed from these and save it for next year. So I'm back here in our farmhouse kitchen to show you how easy it is to save the seeds from your garden vegetables. So like I mentioned earlier, when we're outside with the peppers, these are ones that we had for dinner last night. And I cut around it. We had a little bit of a bad spot there, but the seeds in here are perfectly viable. So I just get a paper towel, put them on a plate, and then I just put some of the seeds onto it. And then I let them dry for a day or two, just at room temperature. And then I put them in an envelope and I label them. One other thing to keep in mind is when you're trying a whole bunch of different types of seeds in your house is to label your paper towel as well, so you don't forget what you have on each one, especially if you have multiple varieties of peppers and tomatoes. So any of the fruits that you get off the vine that have seeds that are covered in a little bit of a gel sac or slimy, things like your cucumbers, your tomatoes, your melons, those are ones that you will need to ferment. Don't let that intimidate you. It is as simple as just putting the seeds in a container of water on your counter for a couple days, and that is it. After it's fermented for a couple days, you just simply strain it out, lay them out on a paper towel, and let them dry. And with bean seeds, like I mentioned when we were outside, you let them dry outside on the plant until they're good and crispy. And once they're crispy, you can pop them open, and inside you will find your seed in there. And so you just keep those. You will find some that are past their prime, or they tried to sprout, or maybe a bug bit them. But for the most part, all the seeds that you're gonna have in here will be perfectly viable ones for next year. So with tomatoes, you just cut them like you would if you were cooking with them. So I'm gonna cut off my little top stem bit here. I'm doing this in slices. And inside you can see that it's got all of the tomato seed in there, and I usually just get a spoon and I collect some of the seed and the juice and the slime on my spoon like this. And then I just put that on the side in a jar that I have when I'm prepping my meal. So this water that I'm dumping them into is what I am going to ferment them in, because I want to get all that slimy bit that's around the seed off of the seed, and when it ferments, it just breaks apart from the seed, making it really simple. So after I finish chopping all my vegetables for my meal or dinner that night, I will cover up my jar with a rubber band and paper towel, and that just keeps the fruit flies from it, and I will just set it on the back of my counter for a few days, and then I will strain it out. Well, I hope this video has been helpful for you and has inspired you to see how many seeds you can save out of your garden this year. In addition to saving money, there's another fantastic reason to save seeds out of your garden, and it's that you can start adapting your plants to your local climate. So I can save those pepper seeds and plant them again next year and the following year, and year after year I'm going to have a better and better pepper plant that is suited specifically for my garden. And the big bonus of that is I get to save a lot of money on my garden seeds. I don't need to buy pepper seed next year, or tomato seed, or bean seed, or lettuce seed, or sunflower seeds. So any of my seed money I can put towards new fun varieties rather than having to rebuy the same thing year after year. And like I said earlier, I'll link below to a few tutorials on how to save seeds step by step for a few different garden vegetable varieties. And with that, I'll catch you next week.